All right, I think we're actually broadcasting here. My webinar jam technology. If you're joining us live, this is all running through technology called Webinar Jam, and it hooks on top of YouTube Live. YouTube has greatly changed. Whether you, you can use the adjective of your choice, but it's changed a lot over the last few months. So I'm glad it works. If you're here in the room in the Freedom Lab with me today, give me a big shout out over here in the chat. I'm going to say hola, everyone. And today is a very exciting episode because this journey we've been on to launch a course, launch a product, and show you behind the scenes of all that work in the Freedom Lab here was culminated. You know, we actually launched, and last week we had a little glitch. Hey, Christina, what's up? Good to see you in here. Keeps shouting out in the chat room over here if you're joining us live over on the right hand side, or if you're on mobile below. I love to see your names and voices, and I love knowing who is joining this tribe on a weekly basis. It's awesome. Last week we had a little glitch. I was out in Minnesota at Lead Pages Converted event, which is a big marketing event, and I was at this hotel that just had crappy Wi-Fi. So I apologize if you try to join us live. It looked like a few people were on there. I was struggling to even get on to Google Hangouts and so forth. So I'm glad that you're here in this episode, though. This is episode 7 of the Freedom Lab. So this one's going to be sort of a recap of what worked in our product launch and what didn't. And then I'm going to give you 3 key takeaways that you can have in your mindset as you go out and launch your own products. So first of all, I got some notes over here. God, I came prepared for you. I was up at 4:30 this morning just working on some sales videos and some all sorts of good stuff over here in the video lab, in the Freedom Lab here at Peaceful Media. So let's talk about what did work. All right, so just to frame this a little bit more, everyone knows we were launching Launch 31, the expert marketing website blueprint. All right, and if you didn't see the previous episodes, we used a 3-part live webinar series as our big content event. If you're coming from let's say a Brendan Burchard world, he loves the acronym, and everyone loves the acronym OVO, opt-in, value, offer. And product launch formula from Jeff Walker, same kind of thing. You know, there's a content event, whether you're doing that in a live format or a pre-recorded format, it doesn't matter. They opt in for excellent value and a content event that presents that value, and then ultimately they get offered a course or whatever you're offering, your program. So we did those a couple weeks ago. We did a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, back to back live webinar training, and it was it was thrilling. It was really difficult, and there were plenty of times where my psychology was something that worked, and this is where most marketing discussions don't go, but I think this is critical. So one of the things that happened in the psychology realm of what worked is staying calm. I had basically going into this, I had one speaking deck. So I had basically my presentation for going on stage and giving a high level overview of what is included in Launch 31 and giving people a sense of why we're the right people to teach it and all that stuff. So I had one presentation deck for a speaking gig that I did in August. And so there was something to leverage here, but I needed 3 of those, and I needed to create brand new content or restructure content that I had never really taught in a live format like that. So So it was a ton of work. I mean, that week and the week prior and the week prior were some really early mornings and some pretty late evenings. And we get up to the point of Thursday morning. I'm here at 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and for some reason, our internet service provider decides to try an experiment to boost our internet speeds. And I think it was, we're pointing the satellite or antenna or whatever the hell it is that gets internet over here. We're trying an experiment to get that internet faster, which took down our internet. Now, that's fine if I'm recording videos and just showing them, on pages, pre-recorded. These were live. I had dozens and dozens and dozens of people signed up for this. If I can't go live and stream this, then the whole thing fails. And I'm watching my internet go off and on, off and on, off and on for a good hour until the webinars were at 10 a.m. PST until 9:50. They were going off and on, off and on, off and on. And I know many people would fall over or start guzzling coffee or doing drugs. But fortunately, I've done enough inner work to just go in flow mode. Do what you can. Of course, I called the ISP. I asked them if they could stop doing what they're configuring over there and meddling with, and just let us have some internet, even if it's a little bit slower. Do what you can, but at the end of the day, stuff happens. This is technology. It's not perfect. You don't have total control, and letting go of that control is critical when it comes to launches. And it's one of the things I respect a lot about Marie Forleo too. My buddy Max here in the Peaceful Media office was telling me a story that she shared of losing some critical footage, like a whole trip's worth of footage. Someone stole it. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to freak out, throw stuff, beat people up, beat your animals? Or are you going to just say, you know what? All right, I'm going to have to find my way to recreate that. And I'm sure there's going to be a better version out there for me. And I was prepared to send that email to the crew and say, hey, let's reschedule. What's really the danger and damage that's done by that? Sure, I would have had an extra week to prepare, right? Would have been nice. But so staying calm. Just know going in, and when you do your product launches, you will have episodes like this. It might not be your ISP pointing an antenna in a different direction, but it'll be something. It always is. Whether your emails don't go out or something's misspelled and it ends up in spam box. I remember Brendan telling me about one of his launches, and someone at his email service provider accidentally sent out a boo-boo email that was immediately regarded as spam by his hundreds of thousands of email subscribers. So shit happens. But he was calm, a little angry, but calm. and that's where all that inner work is going to make this more enjoyable for you. Another thing that comes up especially in live, I think, but actually anything where you're on, and a lot of people are watching, that little inner demon may come up. It did for me. Is that question of, am I enough? And is my content going to be? Is it going to serve people? Is this valuable enough? I start thinking about that. Demon starts thinking about, well, what if one of our internet marketing badasses is watching this? Like Brendan, or some of the more advanced people on our list. Like, are they going to think that this is just hooky? That's not a word. But are they just going to think that this is way too basic? And the aha after the fact was, some of those most basic elements of what I taught were what helped people the most. Not just make a decision to join Launch 31, but to just get clarity and stop searching for an answer out there. And so that's nice to have that fulfillment and reward on the other side. But at the same time, that's a question when left unanswered or left in your demon's hands will keep you from putting your content, especially your face and your name on your content out there in this way, because you're basically that fear of what will they say? Will they give value? Will they think it's good enough? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard this in 1,000 different ways. Why am I the person to teach it this way? You know, all this stuff is going to come up, and that's where your inner game, your psychology is going to come into play. And you have to have that in order for this to work. The third thing is, I kind of mentioned this or alluded to it earlier, is better get ready to get your hustle muscle going because launches are freaking work. I'll get into this. I mean, that sort of ties in with my key takeaway, but I will just say this. Launches will bust your balls. So you better be ready to come with it and come to play. All right, so some things that worked in the communication that I did throughout the webinar. Let me show you my webinar slides and kind of walk you through this a little bit. Let's see, let's go over here. If you have any questions, go ahead and post those. Love to make this as applicable and relevant to you as possible. So some key communication pieces. You can see this in my slides. By the way, I was just using Google Slides. It's awesome tool to be able to have your content like this, your webinar, your presentation slides all up in the cloud. This is the same thing I used when I went out and spoke too. So very, very handy. But anyways, this was actually really critical. Looking back, I always ask our Launch 31 customers, you know, what compelled you to join us? You know, what made this the right fit for you? And I kept hearing from our customers or students, you know, when you said this. So I really love hearing that because, you know, I can go back and say that worked. And one of the things that kept coming up was this whole section right in the beginning when we talked about you're in the right place if. And I did this on each of the 3 webinars because I'm not assuming that that someone joined every single one or that everyone will watch all of them. So especially when it goes into evergreen mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is, you know, it's a major assumption that everybody's going to watch every single minute of each of your content pieces in this value series. So I made it an emphasis that within the first 10 minutes, I'm going to help you understand that you're in the right place or not. And, you know, the key line in here was, a key line that actually isn't here. Well, yes, you want help thinking through the words, the design, and the layout. That sort of comprehensive communication, like the fact that this course is more than just strategy or high level stuff, that it's actually getting down into the nitty gritties. That stood out a lot. Something I don't see in here, which I will add is, and I added into the sales video later for Launch 31 is that that's nice to have that fulfillment and reward on the other side. But at the same time, that's a question when left unanswered or left in your demon's hands will keep you from putting your content, especially your face and your name on your content out there in this way, because you're basically that fear of what will they say? Will they give value? Will they think it's good enough? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard this in 1,000 different ways. Why am I the person to teach it this way? You know, all this stuff is going to come up, and that's where your inner game, your psychology is going to come into play, and you have to have that in order for this to work. The third thing is, I kind of mentioned this or alluded to it earlier, is better get ready to get your hustle muscle going because launches are freaking work. I'll get into this. I mean, that sort of ties in with my key takeaway, but I will just say this: launches will bust your balls. So you better be ready to come with it and come to play. All right, so some things that worked in the communication that I did throughout the webinar. Let me show you my webinar slides and kind of walk you through this a little bit. Let's see, let's go over here. If you have any questions, go ahead and post those. Love to make this as applicable and relevant to you as possible. So some key communication pieces. You can see this in my slides. By the way, I was just using Google Slides. It's an awesome tool to be able to have your content like this, your webinar, your presentation slides all up in the cloud. This is the same thing I used when I went out and spoke too. So very, very handy. But anyways, this was actually really critical. Looking back, I always ask our Launch 31 customers, what compelled you to join us? What made this the right fit for you? And I kept hearing from our customers, our students, when you said this. So I really love hearing that because I can go back and say that worked. And one of the things that kept coming up was this whole section right in the beginning when we talked about you're in the right place if. And I did this on each of the 3 webinars because I'm not assuming that that someone joined every single one or that everyone will watch all of them. So especially when it goes into evergreen mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is it's a major assumption that everybody's going to watch every single minute of each of your content pieces in this value series. So I made it an emphasis that within the first 10 minutes, I'm going to help you understand that you're in the right place or not. And the key line in here was a key line that actually isn't here. Well, yes, you want help thinking through the words, the design, and the layout. That sort of comprehensive communication, like the fact that this course is more than just strategy or high-level stuff, that it's actually getting down into the nitty-gritties. That stood out a lot. Something I don't see in here, which I will add, is, and I added into the sales video later for Launch 31, is that I'm ready to get into the profitability of that. Can be enormous, but I was sending some bad traffic, and frankly, I didn't spend much. I only spent like $150. So that's something I got to do a lot better on. Is create a formal opt-in landing page. I'll show you what I'm doing in lead pages for the evergreen format on the next episode. But use a proper opt-in page that doesn't have lots of places where people can click. I in a rush, I ran through that sort of rule of 101 rule of online marketing and tried to use my blog, and it didn't work. So get your traffic source right and get to your opt-in page right. Those are 2 things I'm going to be thinking about. My adroll retargeting campaign, I think if in the last episode I shared that, I'm a noob at that. We have some ninjas on our team who specialize in retargeting. I went in there and just did it anyways. Spent $100 maybe bucks, maybe less. No, I only spent like $30-40. But I noticed that we only got like two conversions. So that's a really expensive opt-in, really expensive lead compared to the Facebook stuff. So those are the things that didn't work. Everything else I was really, really satisfied with. And I got amazing feedback from people who were on there. Whether or not they signed up, it was a really big, signed up for Launch 31. It was a really big win for our brand here at Peaceful Media. People got tons of clarity, and we're really grateful for that. And that's a huge win. That's a conversion, in my opinion. And I'll explain why. So in my 3 key takeaways, I'm kind of going to recap a couple of these things. My biggest one for you, if you haven't done a whole lot of this, And especially if you're just getting started and you're starting to put your content out there and you're getting crickets, I want you to know this. Commercial results are often delayed. They are delayed in this business. At Lead Pages, one of the speakers shared a table showing how many people sign up for their SaaS offer within the first month, the second month, the third month, all the way up to 12 months. And you saw this scattering, like a pretty good chunk right here in the first and second month, and then trickle, trickle, trickle. And then in this last column over here, 12 plus months, so everything over a year, was a huge graph line. So the same thing applies here. And one of those case studies or one of the stories in our launch is someone who, actually the last person who signed up for Launch 31 was someone who signed up for, our first value event, our first content event back in March. And the timing just wasn't right. He called himself a frugal frog. He needed to sit on the log and look for the right timing for him to make that investment. And I know there were a lot of people watching the webinar series who are in the same boat. But I know that what I learned is that when they're ready, you're going to see this delayed result. You're going to see a customer come in that at first you may think, well, like, gosh, I didn't get all the sales I wanted. That wasn't my case, but you may have that experience of, gosh, I didn't get very many views on this, or not very many people signed up for my live webinar, or doesn't seem like anybody's just following up, and I'm in that void or that black hole of, is this even working? And you keep doing that work. You keep hustling that muscle and muscling your hustle, and you keep putting out your best stuff out there in the marketplace, the best stuff you have in this moment. And down the road, someone's going to write you that email and say, that this was the right time. Ever since you showed me that first experience of your content and how you approach this and what's in it for me, ever since then, I've just been waiting until my timing was right. And I got lots of feedback from that, from people who were feeling the same way. So watch for those commercial results to come in on a little bit of a delay. And this is why sometimes I like when people say, I'm just going out. I'm not going to do my full-time career anymore. I'm just going to go out and make 100K with this online stuff. I get a little freaked out, because it is something that can take some time for you to establish the attention with your market, and also the authority with your market, so that people actually trust what's coming out of your mouth inherently, versus you doing and this is how much money I made. It's awful. All right. Secondly, content events work. If you want to be able to do these live webinars, there's some expensive platforms out there like GoToWebinar. Those are things like the commercial, the corporations will use to present webinars to multiple people, and I'd say it's the most fail-safe solution out there. But if you want something that's a little bit more internet marketing oriented, like the industry in which I play, that Webinar Jams was awesome. And as long as they keep keeping up with YouTube and how YouTube events, Google Hangouts, all that works, we should be in good shape. One of the things that I didn't use in the value series, in the 3 webinars, was the fact that I could, for the people who were in that live experience, I could drop in my offers right there into the chat and give them a handy place to go and click through to snatch up that offer. And it'll actually, if I wanted it to, it would actually count down the number. If you're doing like an urgency or scarcity play with your product, and you literally only have so many spots, then you can actually have it start counting down as the sales come in. So it's tied in with your sales mechanism, feeding back to Webinar Jam, telling it, okay, take another one off, and even posting into the live chat, oh, Christina signed up for Launch 31, so that you start seeing the social proof. And I didn't use this because my offer was post third webinar, and using a sort of a product launch formula mechanism, but nevertheless, that tool is there, and you wouldn't get that in GoToWebinar at all. You'd have to like have a slide up that has your URL for your offer, or send it out in follow-up emails or whatever. Put it in the chat maybe, but yeah. So the third one is, again, knowledge is stackable. It's a ton of work, but all of this is an experience and an experiment that will be invaluable as you keep going. Not only are you starting to collect people's interests, and whenever they're ready, I'm going in, those frugal frogs, but you're also just getting tons of feedback, and you're becoming pro and expert at doing this stuff, so that every time gets better and better and better, and you're able to really connect all that messaging that you're to the audience. And it's so much better the more you do this. Just expect your first 2 or 3 rounds of this to be ho hum, oof, fail, whatever. Just say that, oh, that was a great experience and an experiment, and I have some more to learn, right? So those are my 3 key takeaways, and I hope those serve you well. In the next episode, I'm going to show you how I'm turning everything I did in that live experience, in a live launch, to evergreen. So I got all those videos ready to go. I'm starting to build out some nice lead pages so that I can drip out this sequence of webinars, and I can just get really good, or have some of our team here at Peaceful Media get really good at driving the right traffic to my opt-in page, so that they get that series, and then get the offer on an automated basis versus all that live pressure and hustle. There will be a trade-off. There's no way that an evergreen will convert better than live, but for lifestyle purposes, for freedom purposes, and time with my daughter and my wife and my sister and family, it's important to me that I don't have to go every week and do a 3-part live webinar series. If it completely fails, then I'll let you know here in the Freedom Lab, but I don't think it will. I think it'll resonate. So I don't see any other questions. That's going to wrap up episode 7 of the Freedom Lab. If you want to join us live next time, come on over to freedomlabshow.com and just register for free. I'm posting all these replays in our Facebook group, so search Facebook for Freedom Lab Show, and you'll just ask for an invitation. I'll let you right in. And all of our documentation, things that I'm using, tools, even lights and microphones and cameras and so forth, are all sitting there in the Facebook group for you. So that you can just have a nice little easy click away from what I'm using here. All right, so much love to you, until I see you next week in the Freedom Lab. I'm Jam at Peaceful Media. Remember to love more, play more, do more good. Peace.